Welcome to When One Thing Leads to Another, a podcast that takes you freewheeling down the great internet rabbit hole of trivia.
Each week we pick a starting point, and then who knows where all the twists, turns and tangents will take us. But we'll be sure to unearth a treasure trove of frivolous facts that will be as fascinating as they are, well, useless.
When One Thing Leads to Another is produced and presented by us, Helen and Bill Rich. Our theme music is by Justin Mitchell.
This is episode 2, Die Hard. Right, your favourite film of all time
Die Hard, bitch.
is, as you so eloquently said, 1988's Die Hard.
Bruce Willis, baby.
Bruce Willis and Alan Rickman. Alan Rickman in his first movie role.
Really?
I'm led to believe. Now, did you know that that film was actually based on a novel written in 1979?
Nothing Lasts Forever.
Oh, you know this.
Come on, it's my favourite film.
And that was written by a bloke called Roderick Thorpe.
Yeah.
Now, did you know this? That book was the sequel to a 1966 novel called The Detective.
Oh, he was very slow at writing, wasn't he?
And
that's 13 years for the sequel to come out.
Prolific is not a word you'd use for Roderick Thorpe.
I'm not judging.
Anyway, that novel, The Detective, that was actually made into a film in 1968, and it starred none other than Frank Sinatra.
I did not know that.
Roderick Thorpe's #1 bestseller, a literary guild selection. Now, an adult powerhouse on the screen.
So I was reading that when Die Hard was greenlit 20 years later, the studio, 20th Century Fox, felt obliged to offer the lead role to Frank Sinatra.
What? He must have been pretty old.
He was. It says here he was 73 years old by then, so he politely turned down the role.
Good for him. That would have been really quite embarrassing and awkward had he have accepted the role, and then we get to see him hobbling around Nagatomi Towers.
He wouldn't have been able to shuffle his way through that.
Oh, the air vent.
The air vent.
That would have been a terrible film, and it probably would not have been my favourite film.
No, and we wouldn't be talking about it today, would we? Now, I also read, and I thought this was interesting, that originally Clint Eastwood had bought the film rights for the novel. Clint was going to cast himself as the lead, but nothing materialised, and so Bruce Willis was eventually offered the role. However, it was a role that was offered reluctantly by 20th Century Fox because...
Well, he wasn't that famous then, was he? Really?
Well, no, but more importantly, he wasn't an action star.
I mean, he really had only done Moonlighting, hadn't he? He was a comedy actor.
Precisely. So they were a bit reluctant about that, and in fact, they'd supposedly offered the role to Sylvester Stallone and Arnie Schwarzenegger.
They're too action.
They declined it, and so Bruno eventually was given the role.
Bruno?
Well, he had he released an album called The Return of Bruno, and he covered Under the Boardwalk by The Temptations.
No, The Drifters, I think.
The Drifters.
Is it The Drifters? Yeah.
But you certainly don't hear that on the radio anymore, do you? Probably for very good reason.
No. Well, speaking of Moonlighting, I absolutely loved Moonlighting. It was one of my favourite shows. It was just brilliant, and he was so good in it. He was a really good comedy actor, and I think he was probably one of my first crushes, because he was just this, fast-talking, wise guy. He was brilliant. I loved him. And actually, did you know that he was still in Moonlighting at the same time that they were casting Die Hard? But Sybil Shepherd became pregnant, so the production company gave the cast and crew a few months off, which allowed Bruce to appear in Die Hard. Oh. So thanks Sybil Shepherd for getting knocked up. Yeah. He was allowed to go and film Die Hard.
I'll tell you an interesting thing that I have found out about Moonlighting.
Go on.
Was that it featured Orson Welles' final screen appearance.
Wow.
How about that? Because I've read that Moonlighting was one of the most, at the time, was the most expensive TV series made. It cost millions of dollars. Yeah. Oh. And they did an episode called The Dream Sequence Always Rings Twice, and they needed to shoot it in black and white.
Yeah.
Now, the studio were worried that the audience this would confuse them. So they thought they would...
not giving much credit to your audience.
Yeah, there's nothing like There's nothing like underestimating the basic intelligence of your audience, is there? But
millions of people calling up their radio rentals saying their TV's gone on the blink.
It's on the blink. I can't get colour. So yeah, they just blew a load of budget on getting Orson Welles to introduce that episode.
Good evening. I'm Orson Welles. Tonight, broadcasting takes a giant leap backward. In this age of living color and stereophonic sound, the television show Moonlighting is daring to be different and share with you a monochromatic, monophonic hour of entertainment.
And he died 1 week after he recorded the scene.
Wow, I don't know whether that's a lovely story or a slightly sad story. That after all the greatness he achieved, the last thing he did on film was moonlighting. You know, I mean, I love moonlighting, but it's not exactly in the same league as Citizen Kane.
It's not quite the magnificent ambersons, is it?
Well, you know, of course, Sybil Shepherd, she was in Taxi Driver, wasn't she, in 1976? And I've read on the internet that Bob De Niro asked Sybil Shepherd out during the filming, but she declined, which led to De Niro refusing to talk to her unless they shared a scene.
Oh, that's awkward.
Yeah.
If there is any truth in this, by the way, because I don't know how we can possibly corroborate, because he's famously very secretive, isn't he? Although she has written an autobiography, so whether
has she written about it? Well, I wonder if she was dubious of going out with him after filming the scenes where his character, Travis Bickle, takes her character out, doesn't he, Betsy, and it's a bit of a disastrous date. She probably thought this is art imitating life.
Oh, that is such a horrible scene to watch, because he takes her to the movies and he takes her to see a pornographic film, and they're watching essentially an orgy, and she's sort of shuffling around in her seat uncomfortably, and she storms out of the cinema. And he can't quite work out what's wrong. I mean, that's how unhinged old Travis Bickle was in that film.
Oh, and also another person who died shortly after working with Sybil Shepherd, noticing a theme here. I don't know whether the police need to look into this. But, you know, the soundtrack to Taxi Driver.
Oh, yes. Well, it's a very haunting, sort of really unhinged.
And, of course, that was Bernard Herrmann.
Oh, yes, who did a lot of the
Hitchcock films. Yeah. And the Taxi Driver score was his last work. He died hours after the recording session. So Sybil Shepherd has managed to nobble both Orson Welles and Bernard Herrmann.
Two cinematic giants. I think maybe the feds need to maybe a knock on Sybil's door and just sort of maybe see if she's in any way responsible. Of course, the most famous thing about Taxi Driver probably is the "Are you talking to me?" scene, isn't it?
Are you talking to me? I can't really do it.
No,
you could probably do it.
Evidently.
Rude.
You talking to me? Huh? You talking to me? Well, I can't see anybody else.
You sound
like Yogi Bear. Robert De Niro blends seamlessly into Yogi Bear.
It's a mashup.
Yeah.
Are you talking to me, boo boo?
Hey.
Officer. Oh no, I've gone into Top Cat.
Hey, Officer Dibble, you talking to me?
You talking to me?
De Niro is absolutely brilliant in that role, isn't he? Because you watch that and you go, wow, he is properly unhinged.
I prefer him in Meet the Fockers.
You prefer his comedy role, so he really excels in comedy. He was never any good in those Scorsese type movies. But the legend has it that De Niro got his inspiration after him and Marty Scorsese went to see Bruce Springsteen, no less, on his Born to Run tour.
Yeah.
And there are two different variations. One is that when the fans are all screaming out to Bruce and in their adulation, he would do this faux humble, are you talking to me? Are you talking to me?
Oh, right.
That's one version of the account, and the other is that...
I could see him doing that.
And then there's another one where he does, apparently in a song called Quarter to Three, he does a sort of talky, rappy bit, and in the live shows, and supposedly there are bootleg recordings of it, he says, are you talking to me? That has been claimed to have been Bob De Niro's inspiration. Now, there's been a televised chat between Martin Scorsese and the boss, and this subject was in fact raised. And Springsteen said, oh, well, I'm sure it's just an urban myth. And Scorsese said, well, actually, I think there may well be some truth in it. So talking about Robert De Niro, he is, of course, you know, a highly regarded and highly decorated actor, isn't he? I mean, he's in my top 3 of all time, I would have said. But I'll tell you the one thing that I think he is particularly good at, he's a very good swearer. He
is a very good swearer. It's the accent, isn't it?
And one film where he does some top draw swearing is Raging Bull.
You f*** my wife. What? You f*** my wife.
So I delved into the world of Raging Bull, and I found out that there are a total of 114 uses of the F-bomb.
That's a lot.
Which now
in all its forms, as in, so not just...
Yes, I think any derivatives are also included in that.
Mother you.
Yeah. So this prompted me to look up sweary films, and I discovered that actually Raging Bull is way down the list of the number of F-bombs dropped in a film. In fact, another De Niro film, Goodfellas, which is proper sweary again, the F-bomb is dropped over twice as much with a total of 300 uses.
Yeah, that's more like it.
Goodfellas, I have found out, is 146 minutes long, which means there's an impressive 2 F-bombs per minute.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
So anyway, I continued this, and in fact there's a rather useful list of most F-bombs dropped in a film league. And number 3 is yet another Scorsese film.
Oh, yeah.
Scorsese loves a bit of swearing and cussing in his films, doesn't he? And in number 3 is The Wolf of Wall Street.
That's number 3?
That's number 3. Now, The Wolf of Wall Street, now if you thought 300 uses was a lot, try 569 F-bombs over the course of a 3-hour film. It gives it a rate of 3.16 F-bombs per minute.
That's pretty sweary.
Oh, that is...
Well, what's the sweariest film of all time?
The sweariest film of all time, according to the internet, is a Canadian film which is called SwearNet, the movie, which was released in 2014, and it contains 935 F-bombs over the course of only a mere 112 minutes, giving it a rate of 8.35 F-bombs per
that's
minute.
I mean, that's obviously the goal of the film, is to just cram in as many swears as they can. I mean, what on earth can they be talking about?
Well,
you can't get another word in edgeways.
Are you
kidding me?
nuts?
You're serious right now?
I don't give a if I'm on camera. Is this real?
But that is a whole lot of swearing.
Not the kind of film you want to sit down and watch with your parents.
No, anybody with a slightly nervous disposition with regard to cuss words is not going to exactly enjoy that one, are they, I would have thought. But just rewinding back to The Wolf of Wall Street, you might remember, as well as a lot of swearing, there's a lot of cocaine snorting.
There is, yeah.
Yeah, and I read that they used crushed up vitamin B tablets.
To look like cocaine.
To make that look like cocaine.
Is that good for you, snorting it up your nose?
Well, it's very interesting you should ask that, because Jonah Hill, who plays the character Donny Azoff, claimed that he snorted so much vitamin B he had to be hospitalised with bronchitis.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. That can't be good, can it? Sniffing something up your nose.
Well, vitamin B is obviously very good for you, but this proves quite convincingly that you can have too much of a good thing.
I read that Jonah Hill took an enormous pay cut to be in that film because he just wanted to work with Martin Scorsese. Apparently, he was paid minimum wage allowed by the Screen Actors Guild, which added up to $60,000.
Oh wow! Oh, that's
nothing.
That's nothing compared to what did old Leonardo?
He was a little bit more.
Go on.
10 million.
10 million US.
Yeah.
Well, I would have, if I was Jonah Hill, I'd sort of, wouldn't you feel a little bit sort of...
Well, but I mean, he obviously doesn't need the money, does he? And...
Well, I don't suppose Leonardo needs the money. You'd think he could slip him a mil, couldn't you? Say, look, I'll tell you what, have a mil of mine.
I think he was obviously just
happy
to be working on that film with his hero.
Yeah.
He's actually very good as a serious actor. Yeah, I enjoyed him in that thing on Netflix that was called Maniac. Do you remember, with Emma Stone? He was very good in that, I thought. Yeah.
I probably have watched it and have since forgotten it because I can't recall anything I've watched within about 10 minutes of watching it, unfortunately.
Yeah. That's all that vitamin B you snort. Thank you for listening to When One Thing Leads to Another, a podcast produced and presented by us, Helen and Bill Rich.
If you've enjoyed this episode, then please rate and review us on wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe, and that way you'll never miss an episode.
We'd also love to hear from you, especially if we've got any of our information wrong, or you have some more fascinating facts about something we've talked about, or you could even suggest a subject for our starting point.
Our email address is whenonethingleadstoanother@gmail.com.
A massive thank you to Justin Mitchell for letting us use his music as our theme song. It's a track called Homo Erectus, taken from his fantastical album called The Garden of Earthly Delights, which is available to buy from bandcamp.com.
Thanks also to Acast for hosting us.
Join us next week for another episode of When One Thing Leads to Another.
Please note that all facts have been found on the internet and therefore we cannot vouch for their veracity.